Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Vallabha Right.
Lord Bhakti. Hare Krishna. We are continuing today with the discussion of King Pranjana. We're about halfway through, give or take. It's 5 chapters in all. The story is told in 4 chapters, and in the 5th chapter, King Kuchinabarhi tells Narada, I can see you're trying to tell me something. There's something about this story that seems like there's some hidden message, but I can't quite make it out. Please tell me. So Narada, because we're getting the commentary, right? We've got Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas are kind of filling us in. But Kuchinabarhi didn't have that. So you can imagine hearing this story without the commentary, it'd be really difficult to understand, right? Yeah, if we were just reading the verses, we didn't have the purports. Like, what's all this? So it shows how valuable are the purports.
How value is under the guidance.
That's right. How valuable it is to have the guidance, the revelation coming from the Acharya. So in that final chapter of this section, Narada Muni will disclose all of the different significances of the different allegorical things to King Pranjana. So it's kind of a review. So we're about halfway through. And today we are reading texts 6 through 10 of chapter 27. This chapter is called Attack by Chandavega on the city of Pranjana. And we're going to hear about that attack in in tomorrow's discussion, but today we're kind of leading up to it. So we'll start with text 6. We'll have some invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Om Jnanatirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunvalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaham Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesha Taline Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So text 6. Tasyam ajanayat putran puranjayam puranjanah Shatanyekadasha virad ayushordham athatyagat. The great sage Narada then addressed King Prachinabarhishat, O one whose lifespan is great, Virat, In this way, King Puranjana begot 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife Puranjani. However, in this business, he passed away half his lifespan. Today, you're considered to have a lot of kids if you have 2 or 3. It used to be that people would have 8 or 10 kids. In Italy, they'd have 14, 16 kids. They get started real young and just keep having them until they couldn't anymore. Hare Krishna. Miranda's really feeling the. But it's a labor of love, you know. It's like my grandmother. She had 10 kids. She was Irish Catholic, and now she's like the matriarch of a whole clan. On Facebook, actually, they have a group for the family, the extended family called the Drew Clan. She married Paul Drew. She was Lorraine Magner, and she became Lorraine Drew. And she had 10 kids. And then those kids had 4, 3, 4, 5, and all of a sudden you have 50 members of your clan. So we're going to hear in this section how King Puranjana populated the whole city by his descendants, his children and daughters, and then their children. And allegorically, these children represent the various desires and attachments that Puranjana had. Because his queen, remember, is the intelligence. And so he begot with his intelligence so many offspring, so many desires, so many attachments. The mind is very childlike in that as soon as you think of something, if it seems pleasing, you become very attached, and it becomes very difficult to give that up. For example, let's say it's the nighttime and you're kind of feeling a little hungry and you think, maybe I'll just have some ice cream that's in the freezer. Maybe, why not? For example. And then as soon as the thought enters your mind, you're done for. It's like you're going, it's going to carry you. The mind is going to carry you to that ice cream. You can try to, take a detour, this and that, but as soon as that thought enters your mind, it's very difficult to give it up. So in a way, our thoughts are like our offspring, because once you have that child, that's it. You got to take care of that child. It's not going anywhere. It's your dependent. So similarly, our desires are somewhat like that. They're like our dependents. And as soon as we create one, it's not going to go anywhere. So therefore, Krishna, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, encourages Arjuna, you have to learn to control your mind and senses. You have to give up this propensity of attachment and aversion so that your desires don't even sprout, that you don't put yourself in a position where you're fornicating with your material intelligence. I wonder what we can do to feel pleasure right now, but rather your intelligence is very chaste, thinking only of the Lord and the service of the Lord. That's a pretty advanced stage. So, for now, when we think of ice cream, we just put it nicely in a little bowl and we give it to Prabhupada and the Acharyas, and then please enjoy this ice cream and a little Tulsi on there, at least in our mind, think of Tulsi, and then take the remnants. Then that way we become elevated and our mind and senses become gradually purified, and then we get to the point where we actually can practice complete mental celibacy. In the allegorical sense of avoiding begetting countless offspring in the form of various material desires. So Puranjana here is really active with his wife, having a lot of children, so many desires. And Prabhupada concludes this purport. He says that children are called parinama, or byproducts, And when one consults his good intelligence, he can see that his byproducts should be the expansion of his Krishna consciousness. Children are called parinama, or byproducts, and when one consults his good intelligence, he can see that his byproducts should be the expansion of his Krishna consciousness. That this is the ultimate achievement. See, there's a certain material impetus that impels us to reproduce. And it's on the external biological platform. It's built into the very machinery of the body. Or I would say it may be very impressive, the machines that the scientists have built. But let's see them create machines that can then reproduce and go create other machines. That's what Krishna has done. Is that we have these machines, which are these material bodies, these bio machines, and they're driven by the soul. But these bio machines are so impressive that they can reproduce. So there's written into the machinery of the body this urge to reproduce. And there's a very powerful carrot on a stick, which is this sex pleasure that causes us to very eagerly engage in procreation so that we can get some of that pleasure. But even on a subtle level, there's this urge to reproduce. Within the chemical makeup of the body, but then also in the subtle body, in the mind, there's this desire to have byproducts, to have something that I've done with my life that's tangible, that I can show for it. Look, I've done something with this life. It wasn't a wasted effort, because we work so hard just to keep our body and soul together, just to stay alive. And we want to have something to show for it. And so children are very, perhaps the most powerful symbol of our effort, of our success. That we can, look, I've done something. I've brought this child into existence, and I've cared for it, and then now it goes off and does amazing things. And so much of parents' false egos becomes invested in the children and wanting to see the children succeed in specific areas where they wish they could have, like becoming a musician or a sports star or a business person, or at least you should get an education, because I never got an education, so let me sacrifice and work so my child can get an education and maybe become a doctor or get a PhD. But all of these byproducts are temporary, including our children. And our relationship with our children is also temporary. In this very life, we can see how temporary it is. Just yesterday, we were hearing from one of our friends that his employer's daughter tragically died, just very unexpectedly. And she was pregnant. How tragic. But that's the material situation we're in, is that this life is so precarious. It's compared to like a drop of water on the petal of a lotus flower. Lotus flowers are like naturally repellent, water repellent, so the water just rolls right off. And so you have this drop of water on the edge of a lotus petal, and even a slight breeze and it'll just fall right off. So that's how precarious is our human form of life. At any moment it can be taken away. And so these byproducts, whether it's the projects that we have, or the friendships that we've made, or the money that we've earned, or the children that we have, our relationship with them is temporary. And the pleasure that they bring is temporary. And ultimately, none of these endeavors are satisfying. The only real satisfying endeavor is Krishna consciousness. That's our real project. one of my friends on Facebook, she's good friends with Madhavan Biharani and Jaipur-chan. Her name is Anapayani Radha. She's been serving Mother Krishna Kund and Madhavananda Prabhu in India. And she posted such a nice thing on Facebook the other day. It was a few weeks ago. She said, she may have been quoting somebody, I can't remember, but she said, everybody wants to have some project. But I think that my only real project is that I want to construct a temple within my heart where Lord Krishna can come and live and I can worship him there. Isn't that sweet? Isn't it? The poetry of that image, constructing a temple in the heart. And so that's what Prabhupada's speaking to here, is that our only real project, the only real byproducts that we should focus on and give our heart to is our Krishna consciousness. Now there may be other things that we do, like having children and so on, but we want to be careful that the prominent place is given to our own Krishna consciousness. Also in this purport, Prabhupada speaks heavily against contraception. He writes, although they were begetting hundreds of children, they never used contraceptive methods. Checking population by contraceptive method is another sinful activity, but in this age of Kali, people have become so sinful that they do not care for the resultant reactions of their sinful lives. King Puranjana lay down with his wife Puranjani and begot a large number of children, and there is no mention in these verses that he used contraceptive methods. According to the Vedic scriptures, the contraceptive method should be restraint in sex life. It is not that one should indulge in unrestricted sex life and avoid children by using some method to check pregnancy. If a man is in good consciousness, he consults with his religious wife, and as a result of this consultation, with intelligence, one advances in his ability to estimate the value of life. In other words, if one is fortunate enough to have a good conscientious wife, he can decide by mutual consultation that human life is meant for advancing in Krishna consciousness and not for begetting a large number of children. So the method prescribed is natural restraint. That we can approach the active sex life, which Krishna says, I am that sex life which is performed according to religious principles, that if we take shelter of that principle and have sex for the purpose of begetting Krishna conscious children, and be open that if Krishna so desires, then I'll have a child. And if Krishna doesn't desire, then I won't have a child. And that's in Krishna's hands. That's in Krishna's hands. And there's so much shelter in that. Because you might have an instance where people try to use contraception and they get pregnant anyway. Or people don't use contraception, but then they can't get pregnant. So all of our endeavors to artificially control the situation only result in frustration, ultimately. The real shelter is in understanding that Krishna is the supreme controller. That should be always kept in mind, and all of our activities should be based on that truth. Let's move on to text 7. O Prajapati, King Pachinabarhishat, in this way King Puranjana also begot 110 daughters. All of these were equally glorified like the father and mother. Their behavior was gentle, and they possessed magnanimity and other good qualities. So, the children that King Puranjana was creating, it's not that they were all rotten. That's the that's the trick of the material energy, is that all of these desires, remember these children represent desires that we have. All of these desires that we have seem to be very good and wholesome. Because there may be desires to help other people, or desires to give our children a good life, or desires to be a religious leader. But Prabhupada would say that the mode of goodness is like a gold shackles. It looks good. On the material plane, it's worth something, even if you could get out of them to sell them. But it's still shackles. Whether it's gold shackles, silver shackles, or iron shackles, the mode of goodness is gold shackles. So the outcome of all of our desires, even if they seem very good, if they're not exclusively focused on pleasing and serving Krishna, if they have some mix of some ulterior motive in there, then they ultimately won't bring us real satisfaction. They'll just kind of act like another distraction in our already distracted life. We got a lot of distractions already. We don't need another one in there. But every time we allow a desire to fructify in our mind, that's a mixed desire. Oh, maybe I'll write this book. Maybe I'll do this project. Maybe I do want to have 1 or 2 more kids. All these things, unless they're unless we're very vigilant to see that they're exclusively for the pleasure of Krishna, unless we take guidance from our spiritual masters, that our activity is authorized by the Guru Parampara. Because from the time of initiation, disciple means my whole body becomes the property of my spiritual master. And it's not that that's some cult-like, self-deprecatory act to take shelter of a guru in that way, but it's training for spiritual reality, where I fully understand I am a part and parcel of Krishna. I am an instrument of Krishna's pleasure. I'm not here for my own pleasure. I'm an instrument of Krishna's pleasure. I belong to Krishna. He has a right to use me for his pleasure. Submitting to the Guru is training for that eternal relationship. That I allow myself to be used in the service of the Guru. So I don't have any right to independent activity. I can't go around and do my own projects, write my own books, or have my own children. I want to consult with my spiritual master and make sure that he supports me in what I'm doing. And we may all have our needs of how whatever that might look like, and it's not that any activity is prohibited. Having children and writing books and building temples and everything can be devotional service. It's a question of intention and a question of authorization. Do we have the blessings of the devotees, the blessings of the spiritual master? And we should also be checking in periodically to see, what is my intention? What am I hoping to get out of this, really? How attached am I to a particular material outcome? That's a really good litmus test. Am I expecting some specific material result from this? That I'll get some reciprocation in the form of some happiness or some position or some recognition, whatever it might be. Or am I doing this purely for service as an offering, and I'm leaving the fruits, the results up to Krishna? That's a helpful thing to ask oneself. That can help us see what's our motive. If we're attached to a particular outcome, probably we have some ulterior motive. In this purport, Prabhupada discusses the difference between children begotten in a religious way and children that are born illegitimately. Varna Shankara. When a husband and wife are a good match for each other, when the marriage is done under the blessings of the devotees and according to, as far as we can to the Vedic system, and then the husband and wife come together with the intention of begetting a child and raising that child in Krishna consciousness. If these and other factors are considered, then the child is considered to be a great boon to the family. A son is also called putra. Putra means one who delivers us. And I'll just jump ahead a couple purports here. Where is this? Let's see. Prabhupada writes this. This is in the next text. I'll just read this briefly. In the purport, the next text, Prabhupada says, according to the Vedic system, everyone should marry. One has to accept a wife because a wife will produce children, and the children in their turn will offer foodstuffs and funeral ceremonies so that the forefathers, wherever they may live, will be made happy. The offering of oblations in the name of Lord Vishnu is called Pindodaka, and it is necessary that the descendants of the family offer Pinda to their forefathers. So in the Vedic system, having a child, according to the religious prescriptions, is considered necessary. That child will then expiate us or deliver us from whatever residual sinful reactions we have. And this is another way that Krishna and Lord Brahma have built into the whole social system this impetus for begetting more children to populate the universe so that this whole show can go on. They gotta have bodies for the souls. There's a lot of souls that need bodies that need to fulfill all of their desires. That's what this material world's all about. So when we observe religious principles in the act of begetting a child, it's called garbhodhana. And this is very different than the other way of having children. But again, Prabhupada uses the opportunity here to emphasize the ultimate necessity for renunciation. He writes, even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex that is beyond the prescribed method is to consider to be sinful. Too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. Therefore, one has to become a Swami or Goswami at the end of his life. One may beget children up to the age of 50, but after 50, one must stop begetting children and should accept the Vanaprastha order. That's pretty lenient, I think. You can keep on going right up till 50 if you want, if
48,
necessary.
49.
Yeah, 47, 48, 49, 50. Done. In this way, he must leave home and then become a sannyasi. A sannyasi's title is Swami or Goswami, which means that he completely refrains from sense enjoyment. But then Prabhupada throws in a caveat. One should not accept the sannyas order whimsically. He must be fully confident that he can restrain his desires for sense gratification. King Puranjan and his family was, of course, very happy. As mentioned, he begot 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. Everyone desires to have more sons than daughters, and since the number of daughters was less than the number of sons, it appears that King Puranjan and his family life was very comfortable and peaceful. So we can have a happy home life, we can have a happy family life, and then even that's necessary in order to come to a healthy stage of renunciation. To get actual experience that in spite of having all of the external ingredients for a happy home life, I'm still not happy. I have a beautiful wife. I have so many beautiful sons. I have beautiful daughters. Everyone wants a son and a daughter. They want to have both. They want to get the experience of both. My parents kept on having children just because they wanted a daughter. If my older brother had been a daughter, I might not be here right now. They already had a son. If they had a daughter, they might not have had another son. So if you've got a son and a daughter, and you've got a beautiful wife and a beautiful house, you think, I'm like a king. I have everything I could possibly want. But still, I'm not happy. Everything I could think I could want materially, all of my dreams have been fulfilled, and still I'm not happy. We have to come to that realization in order to give up our connection with this world. That no matter what material situation we can create for ourselves by the help of the Lord, still we don't feel happy. So one sense, the Grihastha Ashram is our opportunity to really experience that for ourselves. And at the same time, all of the various duties associated with the Grihastha Ashram are uplifting. So it also puts some, spiritual credits in our spiritual bank account, inviting devotees to our homes, serving devotees, serving the deity, doing our sadhana, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, participating in kirtans, doing devotional service, having children if we can, and if the Lord allows, whatever it is, whatever is our service. But ultimately we come to the realization, it doesn't fulfill my deepest heart's desire. There's only one person who fulfills my deepest heart's desire. Who's that person?
Deva Madhava. No.
Madhava.
Madhava.
That's right. No, not even him. Yeah, Krishna. No one else. Only Krishna. But it's not something that we can it's not a realization we can artificially pretend to have. Many people, in the name of aversion to the hard work of family life, choose to avoid getting married. They think, let me just stay in a comfortable position in the ashram, and in that way I won't have to work hard. I can just eat and sleep and do a little bit of devotional service and just have a nice life, materially. But they're cheating themselves. So all of the different ashrams are meant to bring us progressively to this point of realizing that ultimately only Krishna will satisfy our heart's desire. Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada's emphasizing this, that the first part of life, we have a license for sense gratification. We have a license. Even in the Brahmacharya ashram, you have a license. You have a license for honoring prasadam up to the neck. But once you turn 50, you should start reining it in. Because the body forces you to. And because death is coming up. The next life is coming up, and you want to be in a position where you can take that step into the next life consciously. That I'm going to Krishna. I'm going to Vrindavan. I don't want to come back here. If Krishna needs me to come back, fine. But I don't want to come back because of my own agenda. That's for sure. So at least by midway through life, or earlier, if we can, as early as we can, we should start consciously preparing, consciously reining in our desires. And if we notice new desires coming up, we should clip them, nip them in the bud. Not going to let that one sprout until I can consult Guru Sadhu Shastra. Not even going to let it germinate. Not going to let that seed germinate in my mind. Hare Krishna. So we'll continue. Text 8. We already discussed a little bit of this purport, but we'll just read the text. After this, King Puranjana, king of the Panchala country, in order to increase the descendants of his paternal family, married his sons with qualified wives and married his daughters with qualified husbands. He got all of his children married. Text 9. Of these many sons, each produced hundreds and hundreds of grandsons. In this way, the whole city of Panchala became overcrowded by these sons and grandsons of King Paranjana. We've been discussing how these sons and daughters of King Paranjana, because they're begotten with his wife, who represents the intelligence, that these sons and daughters represent desires, attachments. And it's interesting that then those sons and daughters go on to have their own sons and daughters. And isn't that the way with attachment and desire? That through one desire you think, oh, that's a pretty harmless desire. That's not going to really cause me any problems. Then all of a sudden, that forks out and branches off, and all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 other things going on because of that one desire. Text 9. Of these many sons, oh, we just read that. All right, so the whole city of Panchala became overcrowded with these sons and grandsons. So the city of Panchala is the body of Paranjana in the allegory, and Paranjana is the conscious living entity. And all of these sons and grandsons, it's described, overcrowded his whole body, the whole city. His body and mind just became overburdened, filled with different desires. So much so that he could not reasonably support them all. People have what they call a bucket list. You heard that term? Bucket list. It's a weird term because it's based on this phrase, kick the bucket. Everyone know what that means, to kick the bucket?
To die.
Well, it's not just to die.
Oh,
It's not just to die.
If you're getting hung.
If you're hanging yourself.
Oh, God. Okay.
Because you got to stand on the bucket, tie the noose, tie it to the rafter, and then when you're ready to go, you kick the bucket so it falls out from under your feet. Yeah, it's a graphic saying, and it's become the common terminology for quitting the body. Well, when I finally kick the bucket. If you had somebody else there, you wouldn't need to kick the bucket. They could just take the bucket out. You're by yourself, you're ready to go, and you gotta kick the bucket, and you got your bucket list. Well, these are the things I'm gonna do at least before I kick the bucket. Isn't that graphic? Isn't that sad?
That's true.
And so you've got all these things that you think you want to do to try to enjoy before you kick the bucket. But you're never going to get to them all, you know. So you're overburdened with all your desires. And it's a very miserable position, actually, that our desires, just like children, when children are begotten without a proper intention, then children very quickly become burdensome. Because it's so much work. If you don't know what you're getting into, if you're not doing it for a pure purpose, for a religious or dharmic purpose, excuse me, then you're in for trouble because it's very, very hard work and constant responsibility. They never go away until they get, 16, maybe. Then they come back, usually, in American culture. Hopefully not in our little harmony collective sangha. We can raise responsible children who go off and then, anyway. But the point is that desires are like children in that once you allow the desire to have space in your mind, in your body, it doesn't go away, and it drains your resources, and it begets its own children, and then you're in trouble. So the whole process of yoga is about reining in our tendency to desire and making our desire into like a laser focus, concentrating all of that energy into a laser beam going to Krishna. And it's very powerful. People experience a lot of material happiness even when they're able to rein in their desires and focus on one goal. They're able to do amazing things, and they feel very gratified because they do a lot focused on one goal. So what to speak of when you do that in devotional service, when you bring all of your desires to this one-pointed one-pointed laser focus on Krishna. It's blissful. It's wonderful. And Prabhupada in his purport to this text 9, he quotes from Narottam Das Thakur from a bhajan, Karma Kanda Jnana Kanda Keva Lavi Shara Vanga Amrita Baliya Yeva Kaya Nayoni Sadapure Kadarya Bhakshana Kare Tara Janma Adhapate Yaya. Fruitive activities and mental speculation, karma and gyan, are simply cups of poison. Whoever drinks of them, thinking them to be nectar, must struggle very hard, life after life, in different types of bodies. Such a person eats all kinds of nonsense and becomes condemned by his activities of so-called sense enjoyment. So the result of all of this endeavor on the path of karma or the path of jnana, we just suffer. Whatever we get, we suffer, and we're thinking all this time, maybe this will taste good, maybe this will taste good, maybe this will taste good, maybe this will taste good. And each time it's like we have to spit it out. That wasn't what I thought it would be. Let me try this thing now. Each time. Life after life. All right, where did that go here? So, I have my notes on my phone. So, all right, text 10. Then I'll close it up. These sons and grandsons were virtually plunderers of King Puranjana's riches, including his home, treasury, servants, secretaries, and all other paraphernalia. Puranjana's attachment for these things was very deep-rooted. Prabhupada comments, in this verse, the word Rikta Hareshu, meaning plunderers of wealth, is very significant. One's sons, grandsons, and other descendants are ultimately plunderers of one's accumulated wealth. Prabhupada tells a story, in this purport he tells the story of this industrialist, a very wealthy Indian business owner, who had 6 wives and a lot of children. And he wanted to leave each children 500,000 rupees. So he was working very, very hard to accumulate this much wealth, just so he could leave it to his children, so they could spend it on whatever they wanted. So they would remember him and think, how great of a father do I have that he gave me this money, and now I can spend it. So, in this way, children who are not brought up in Krishna consciousness ultimately sap us of our resources. If they don't become God conscious, then really there's no benefit. In fact, there's a play on words that there's a word that sounds like putra. Putra means child. That sounds like putra, but means urine. Because both semen and urine come from the genitals. So it's said that a child who doesn't become God conscious is no better than urine. It's pretty heavy, pretty harsh thing to say.
Very heavy.
But Bhagavatam doesn't mess around. We have a lot at stake here in this material life. This is our chance. We have this human body. This human body is compared to a ship, a strong boat. We have a chance to sail over the ocean of material existence, to be done once and for all with all suffering. Everyone is suffering, and this is our chance to be done with suffering and to go to Krishna, not just put an end to suffering, to experience the ultimate happiness which we exist for. Just the other day, I was kind of feeling some doubt, like, if I even get to the spiritual world, is it really going to be that great? I mean, am I really going to feel happy? Like, because a lot of Krishna's devotees just suffer. They suffer. But am I really going to feel, so is it really going to be satisfying? Or I'm just going to have to experience this experience. Am I going to be in this experience of misery forever? This kind of depression and dissatisfaction, is that going to be with me forever? And I realized I exist for a purpose. And Krishna is all good. And he would not have any aspect of his existence that was defective. It's not like I'm a broken jiva. So when I'm rightly situated in my eternal relationship with Krishna, it'll be all good. Because I'll be fully aligned with the all good Krishna. Does that logic kind of make sense to everybody? Kind of, yeah. So that brought me a lot of comfort. That yes, when I actually give my whole heart to Krishna, it will be all good. Yes, there will be a diversity of emotions, but they'll be all good. That all of this depression or anxiety or anything that is bad is just based on self-centered bodily thinking. So, Krishna. Rikta Hareshu, that if we don't have children and bring them up in Krishna consciousness, they just sap us of our vitality. And in the allegory, these sons and grandsons are all these different desires that King Puranjana has accumulated over the course of his life, and they're just sapping him of his life energy. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I've been in a position where I've had so many different desires, and when I realize I may not fulfill those desires, they start to harass me, and I feel very bad. Oh, I'm not going to get to be a guitar player, or a great drummer, or a great singer. I could keep going. The different desires I've had in my life. Not going to be a famous punk rock musician, whatever it is. So many things, so many desires that we have, and then we realize we're not going to get to do them, and they harass us. And they sap us of our vitality. And so, the process of yoga avoids that we can rein in our desire and focus our desire, that actually all of those other desires aren't worth my energy anyway, unless I can make them assets in my devotional service, like Vishnu is learning guitar, and he's playing guitar for Krishna and singing for Krishna and for the pleasure of the devotees. It's very good. And he has a Vaishnav guitar guru that he's taking guidance from, Srimad Kanana Prabhu, who's like a music genius. He's like a devotional music genius and a kavi, a Vaishnav poet. It's not just his music, his spoken word is excellent. It's inspired. So he's safe. So that desire, he's effectively employed that in service to Krishna. That's a devotional desire. So we want to do that. If we have desires, if we have children, whatever byproducts we have, they belong to Krishna. We want to use them in Krishna's service. That's all. All right. Thank you for your kind attention. Any comments?
Yeah,
Let's give preference to the people who are here, if there's any reflections or comments, and then, yeah.
I know it's probably like the smallest part of what he talked
That's
about,
okay.
but it really stood out to me.
Jackie, can you give the mic to Miranda? Can you give the microphone to Miranda, please? Good job.
Thank you, darling. When you were speaking about the contraceptives and how it's sinful to use the contraceptives like that, it kind of gave me so much relief, because I've always believed, I don't know what it was in my life, I'm like, I've heard of, like you said, I've heard of people that are on birth control or that have used, physical contraceptives or other methods, of that. And it's with or without, they're doing or not doing, it happens the way it happens. And so I always figured, like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Waste the money, waste the time, waste the mental space. So but it's always nice to hear when it's in Shastra and Prabhupada's saying something. Yeah. Thank you.
I just was wondering how to have that balance between, because some of the things in the scriptures are so heavy.
Yeah.
And I just have so many friends who kind of who were brought up in the movement, and I guess, yeah, I don't wanna
No, say
have to
it.
say this without. I just, like a pressure can be on a group and
Yeah.
to be a certain way, and
Yeah.
like, they
Yeah,
should
yeah,
be this way, otherwise,
Yeah.
as the scripture says, they're like urine, so
Yeah.
it's kind of, that balance needs to be found, I think, and I just see, I have so many questions on this point, but.
Sure. Well, I can say something
That's-
brief
yeah,
about it. I'll say something very brief, because I went a little bit over time, but I wanted to. So I like that you use the word heavy, because that really gives us a visual, a very powerful visual for understanding the thing. So we're all meant to be bodybuilders, spiritual bodybuilders. And actually every soul can be a spiritual bodybuilder. It's not like in the material world where some people can be bodybuilders and some people don't have the physique for it. Every soul can become a Paramahamsa, can be a spiritual bodybuilder, can lift the heaviest weight of Krishna Prema and carry it on their head everywhere they go. But we have to build up to it. And so the heavy statements are there to establish a firm conviction that this Krishna Prema is the only worthwhile goal in the ultimate sense. And that my life is meant that I can become a pure devotee, a Paramahamsa. Everybody. Prabhupada's saying at the end of life, everyone should become a Goswami. Everyone. And everyone can. It's not that only few select people can. No matter what your background, where you're coming from, everyone can. But it'd be irresponsible and dangerous either for a person to advise or someone to try to go to that heavy weight and try to lift it up without any previous training, So if we're thinking, I'm gonna go lift that heaviest of weights without working on the light weights, we're in for trouble. We're gonna hurt ourselves. And if you're saying, hey, what are you doing with your light weights? Get over here and lift the heavy weights. That's not proper guidance. So the duty of, in the scripture, we get sambandhagyan, knowledge of the process of like our relationship with Krishna and the big picture. But then when it comes to application, it's individual. It's individual, and it requires one's own awareness of where we're at, and it also requires guidance. And so the symptoms to look for in a guide, Rupa Goswami says, are someone who's like-minded, that you can relate to, you feel comfortable with, and you see that this person's goals in their spiritual life and their approach to spirituality resonates with my own, and is affectionate. They have affection for us. So that person then, when they give us the guidance based on scripture, they're gonna really tailor it to just like a fitness trainer. They're gonna see, okay, try lifting this one. Okay, try lifting this one. Okay, you should lift these for this time. And let me know how it goes, Let's set goals. By the time, 6 months from now, I think you could be lifting these. Does that sound exciting to you? Yeah, I'm gonna lift these by next year. I'm gonna be lifting these weights.
We ripped.
Yeah, I'm gonna get ripped. Is that exciting to you?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm gonna be spiritually ripped. Great. Okay. So that kind of back and forth personalization, and everything adjusted according to one's individual position, because it's not black and white. And it is. There is black and white, and there's a spectrum. There's both. So we want to be careful, first of all, to never judge others or criticize others for their level of practice. It's not about comparing oneself with others or even evaluating others so much as working on oneself. No one else's Krishna consciousness or lack thereof is going to make me a devotee of Krishna. I have to understand this for myself and apply it for myself. And Guru Kulis, they're devotees. They took birth in the devotee family. Even if they don't apply themselves strictly to the process, they have faith in Krishna and they do service to Krishna. I've seen it. That even the ones who may not have such a good sadhana, or they may complain about ISKCON or this or that, still they have faith in Krishna. And even in this life, they make progress. And so the best thing we can do is just take our own life seriously, and then in that way, we might be an inspiration. You know? But don't worry about other people. Krishna's got them. Krishna's taking care of them. You know? Any other comments? Yeah, you want to share something on that point?
Yeah, you're.
Teacher Gopal had something
Oh,
really quick,
please, yeah.
just because he can speak with.
I was appreciating the point about the desires, the accumulation of desires, and how they take up so much space in the body, in the mind, or subtle body. And yesterday we were talking about how like every time we try to engage in sense gratification or any kind of activity in the material world, it leaves an impression in the mind. So I was thinking about, you were saying how you have all these unfulfilled desires that are kind of like nagging, you know.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting, you know, just how the mind works, you know, and all these kind of subtleties, you know, like the accumulation of mental samskars and desires. And so I was just thinking about how to kind of filter, you know, those desires so that we don't become like overwhelmed, but also not like, how do you say, like in self-denial.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The filter, it requires a strong spiritual intelligence. By hearing from scripture, hearing from devotees who have strong intelligence, then our natural ability to judge what is favorable and what is unfavorable will improve. And it improves through trial and error, through experience, but it also improves through the more we associate with devotees and hear about the lives of great devotees, we get a better sense for understanding, is this really gonna bring me toward my ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness? And I'm not saying you can't and shouldn't have secondary goals, that's very important. In the Bhakti Sundarbha, Jiva Goswami describes these as like different types of bhakti. That it's not pure bhakti, but it still counts as bhakti because it's supporting our bhakti. So we don't want to be in self-denial and pretend that we're more advanced than we are and just try to imitate a Paramahamsa lifestyle. We have to be practical and realistic, and that comes from maturity, which is strong spiritual intelligence, and we get experience over time, and everybody's individual, so we shouldn't be so interested in comparing ourselves to others in a competitive kind of way. Yeah, there's a couple things online, and then we should wrap it up. I went over time. Yeah. Thanks.
Just my own comment for those who like alliteration.
Yeah.
You could, for building spiritual muscles, so to speak, you
Yeah.
could say bhakti buff.
Nice. I like that.
We can
The
brand
bhakti
that.
buff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Feel free to take it and
Yeah,
use
thank
it.
you. Bhakti buff.
Your good wife had some comments. She said, I thought you really brought out the essence of the analogy, children to desires. And she commented, I was wondering if you had that purport, sounds like an inside understanding, that purport about the order of the spiritual master to conceive. And
I
then
don't have that,
he does not have it.
but yeah.
And
I can paraphrase it.
And then she commented, and I really liked the point that desires for service have to also be similarly authorized.
Chat. There's one purport where Prabhupada says he's talking about conceiving children according to the Vedic system, and that one should not even attempt to conceive a child without the order of one's spiritual master. He writes that very explicitly in the purport. So today we may not have such, it may be difficult to write our spiritual master every time we want to conceive or try to. But the principle is there, and as Madhuri is pointing out, that applies to all of our services, not just having children, that the order of the spiritual master must be there, the authorization must be there. And it's not just an external thing. Even the guru can give an external order or permission, but internally be dissatisfied with the disciple. Like when some of Prabhupada's disciples wanted to go and start some traveling rock show thing and blend Hare Krishna with this and that, Prabhupada said, okay, you can do it. But then to his other disciples, he said, actually, I wish they wouldn't do it, but they would do it anyway. So I don't want them to commit offenses. So it's an internal thing that we have a relationship of submission and an ardent desire to be an instrument for the pleasure of our spiritual master, an instrument for the pleasure of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, or Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Praise the Lord.